It is trade deadline eve. The Marlins, though, get Jazz Chisholm Jr. back. 3 plate appearances for a rehab assignment. Jazz Chisholm Jr. saying, I don't need any more rehab. And he is back in the lineup for this huge Phillies series. Avisail Garcia also back. The Marlins have added 2 sticks without having to make any trades. Do they need to actually make any moves at the deadline, apart from those 2 relievers they've already acquired? Tons to get into. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your daily Marlins podcast. It's the Monday episode. It's the 31st of July. It's a month ender and a week starter. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on X at Miami Marlins _UK. If you're listening to the pod, of course, subscribe. Leave a review. View account, listen account. Way up at the moment. Way up. Bandwagon absolutely filling up. No doubt about it. This is your team every day, of course. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. There is a YouTube channel, of course. It is also called Locked On Marlins. Head on over there, hit subscribe. We're almost at 900 subscribers now. Can we get to 1,000 subscribers by tomorrow? I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this Marlins team. I think there's some activity that is planned and will happen in the next day or so. And I expect there to be a lot of people tuning in to both emergency pods and trade recaps. We'll wait to see. Nevertheless, it is a Monday episode. And the UK GOAT, of course, is in the house. Sean Barrett, how we doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Pete. What an exciting time it is. Trade deadline and the Marlins are buyers. We've got to try and squeeze this one in quickly because you never know what might happen. We could get a trade drop in any second. So I think our eyes will be half on the podcast and half on Twitter, specifically Craig Mish notifications.
Very, very true. Craig Mish. It's funny, though, Sean, right? Like, It really sticks out at this time of the year, just how immense Craig Mish is and how connected he is. Because middle of the game yesterday, in what was a fun game and a tight game, back and forth game, all of a sudden, partway through the game, a Craig Mish tweet fires out and he's just announcing just casually that Jordan Hicks has been traded. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then all of a sudden, the mainstream media guys, the big guys, everyone there, as usual, as per Craig Mish, and he's just so connected, Craig Mish. He knows tons. And we take it for granted sometimes. But to your point, notifications are on. Been getting a daily fix of Sports Grid, no doubt. And also, I don't know if you saw it, but there's a softball game happening this week and Craig Mish is appearing. So I don't know what role he'll be playing in that. But either way, it is Craig Mish notifications. If they aren't on all year, they're absolutely on right now. And it's going to be a fun... Yeah, we got just over 24 hours, I guess, for the deadline itself. So we're on countdown. To your point as well, Sean, through this episode, we will be glancing at our devices now and again to make sure we don't have to break something. This is being recorded at 9 p.m. UK time. So what's that? That's 4 p.m. Eastern, just to give you a timestamp as to when this happens. Nevertheless, though, Sean, there has been some breaking news today, not related to any trade activities, but the Marlins have got better, and they've got better offensively. And defensively, perhaps. The Marlins have been able to reinstate Jazz Chisholm Jr. back into the lineup. The lineup was out early too. Jazz Chisholm Jr. back in it, in center field, and hitting cleanup, mate. What a boost this is for the Marlins at this time of the year and what is going to be a really tricky schedule throughout, August, September, all the way. So big boost for the Marlins.
Oh, it's huge. And I think when he first went down and we knew that the injury wasn't going to be a quick 10-day or so. And we were talking about, getting back at the deadline. And if the Marlins are still in it and they're buying, then we can look forward to that and have that boost. It would almost be like, as you said, getting a bat in at the deadline. So having him back now, that felt like it was 4 weeks ago, but it felt so long ago. So to have Jazz back in the lineup is huge for the Marlins, as you said. Obviously, Hampson going down is a bit of a shame because he's actually performed okay. We've had some good success stories with these veteran bats that the Marlins have used as next man up. They haven't had to go to the depths of people like Groshans or the younger, unproven guys that you just can't really trust. You can hope, but you can't really trust. So Hampson, did a serviceable job, but obviously Jazz is Jazz. So he brings that power, he brings that speed, brings that excitement, and I think for me the main point now is let's get 80% Jazz for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want 110% Jazz for 5 days. It's not going to serve the Marlins any good. I don't know if Jazz has 80% in him.
I'm about to say,
I don't
not
think
sure.
see less than 100%, but it would be nice to see him balance his availability and his ability.
Availability and ability. That would be the magical combo for Jazz Chisholm Jr., Mr. Barrett. I completely agree. When you look at the year thus far, and this has been the problem, I would say, we're over 100 games in. Jazz Chisholm Jr. games played in 2023, 45. He's played less than half the season thus far for the Marlins. So they're still 8 games over 500 at this point. And you're adding in a player that's effectively played, let's call it a third of the year. It's slightly more than that, but 40% of the year, let's say. Like, there's no grand, hype and buzz associated to this because it hasn't been a trade and you haven't added a stick. But like, the Marlins are 8 games over 500 and they have pretty much legitimately added a all-star stick. The point that you're making, though, Sean, is can he stay available for the rest of the year? And that's what he needs to do. It's for all the talk, everything that he's put out there. Clearly, he's not trying to get injured, but the Marlins really need him now, and because this is crunch time, and they've done well enough without him. But now it's time for Jazz to turn up, deliver both defensively, offensively, and availability-wise as well. That's the kind of ultimate combo here for Jazz. I have to kind of segue a touch, right? It's trade season time now. I listened to the guys, Fish on First Unfiltered. Joe Frisaro was on. There was a interesting thread and conversation on that podcast where they were talking about, what's Jazz's role now moving forwards? And could he be someone that the Marlins consider trading at some point to go and acquire a type of guy like Luis Robert or Luis Robert, depending on how you want to pronounce that one. But I thought it was a really interesting one because what Joe was calling out was like, where does Jazz play now? Second base, you got Arias. Shortstop, they didn't feel comfortable with him there. He transitioned out to center field. There's maybe other options at center field. He's not, been on the field all the time. Like, do the Marlins legitimately look to entertain discussions, including Jazz Chisholm Jr., with a trade package to go and acquire someone like a Luis Robert? Would you entertain that, Sean?
I would be very surprised if the Marlins did that. I think Jazz has proven himself, admittedly in short periods of time, to be, a very exciting, very enthusiastic player. He's on the minimum. That always helps. He theoretically could be the face of the hitting lineup, alongside Arias, obviously. But Arias' contract is not, it's not for certain at this point. We've got a couple of years of arbitration, but Jazz could be that face of the franchise for the team, going through a quasi rebuild. If they don't bring back Soler next year, which we've discussed a little bit, then we could be looking at a mini rebuild. You've got Jazz, you've got Arias, and you've got Sandy, of course, and you've got the young pitching coming through. But a genuine attempt at playoffs, as in spending money, I think we'll know straight away. If Soler isn't here next year, then we know that they're probably going to go that way. So could you swap Jazz for? I want to call him Louis. I don't know why. I have him as a Louis Robert personally, but who knows? Could they do that with him? Of course.
Louis Robert.
A little bit of flair from me, which is unusual, but I don't know. I'd just be surprised personally. That they make that move.
Me too. I just wanted to call out Louis Robert That's absolutely tickled me, by the way. Louis Robert right now he's had a 4.5 WAR campaign thus far. OPS plus a 136, and he's hit 29 bombs thus far. He's controllable for another 4 years with 2 club options tacked on the back end, 20 million a year after a 12.5 and a 15 mil the next 2 seasons. So controllable, affordable for that level of talent, productive. Luis Robert is exactly the type of hitter that every club should be targeting, to be honest with you. However, to your point though, Sean, I personally wouldn't be looking to move Jazz as part of that. You need to build around Jazz. I think the Marlins have already committed to building around him in the offseason. I think they've committed to him. And he's committed to the Marlins too. That's the other point. It's like he was the sacrificial guy. Hey, I'll go to center field and solve your problems. So I'd be stunned if they did it. But really, Robert becomes the Soler replacement if indeed that Soler moves on. The Marlins do need to consider what the Soler replacement looks like and is. The White Sox are clearly selling right now. The price tag associated with Robert at this point would be astronomical. Do the Marlins have enough ammo to get it done? Here's what I know, though. The White Sox have just sold every pitcher they've got, apart from Dylan Cease, and they may well sell him. I do wonder if they may be aligned pretty well. Like, all of a sudden, the White Sox empty out the pitching. The Marlins maybe have some pitching there that they could piece together that isn't currently available right now that could get a deal done for someone like Luis Robert that helps them now, gives them the big stick, plus 4 more years of control of, like, let's be honest, like, this is fringe MVP level production from Luis Robert at this point. So if there's a deal to be done, I think Luis Robert is the most desirable guy out there, to be honest with you. From a club that clearly is in a rebuild and is selling, they may want to build around Robert, but maybe they just blow the life out of it right now and make a move now. Who knows? Who knows, mate? I did want to kind of circle into a few other points you made. However, we need to do the first ad, and then we'll carry on. This episode, just as a health warning, guys, do not expect a 20-minute pod. This one's going to go long. There's so much to get into here. And this episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Yes, sir. And you take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to over-unders to who you think is going to be going and hitting the first home run in that game. All on the app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, back here with the UK GOAT, Sean Barrett, Peter Pratt, chopping it up on Monday the 31st. It is the trade deadline eve. Chisholm Jr. is back. Do the Marlins look to add another power stick? Did want to carry on here, Sean, on that topic around Jorge Soler. It's fair to say, since the All-Star break, Soler has been ice cold. Ice cold Jorge Soler. Started hot, All-Star appearance. Absolutely gone ice cold since. This is Garrett Cooper like. He's having a Cooper, it's a Cooper 2022. We will talk about Coop as well in a bit as well, by the way. But Soler all of a sudden has just come back to earth with a thud. And the Marlins desperately need Soler to find it again in the coming weeks, I would say. But all of a sudden, we all were thinking Soler's opting out. He won't accept a qualifying offer, all these things. All of a sudden, it feels like Soler's kind of edging his way back to the Marlins price range. What about you?
As soon as you started talking, I was like, yeah, this does sound like Cooper. I think he would have to continue to play, not hitting his weight and without the power for the rest of the season. Yeah. For him to not want to, $9 million, is it next year? Like, there's no way he'd really have to have a major incident. I think even if, God forbid, he doesn't get hurt, but if he were to get hurt now, that's probably preferable to sucking for the rest of the year. I don't see a scenario where 9 million is, quite frankly, enough. Could that number come so low that the Marlins could extend him rather than have to give him that 20 million qualifying offer? Maybe, but then if you're at that point, why would they want to if they're seeing him struggle? This is just a small blip, isn't it? I think it's just magnified because you've got that clear line of demarcation from the All-Star break. Soler's still Soler, I think, and it'll just take one bomb, won't it? One bomb, that'll get him back on the ride. That'll get us back excited. And hopefully that happens real soon.
Speaking about one bomb, all it takes is one bomb. One bomb was all it took yesterday for Garrett Cooper to swing the game back in the Marlins' favor. However, one bomb maybe alerted everyone to, hey, Garrett Cooper, he's a stud. By some reporting today, the Marlins are maybe listening on Garrett Cooper, just as the biggest Garrett Cooper stan out there in the world, I think. I'm certain. Just try to give me the range of emotions that you're feeling. Equally, why the Marlins are listening on Coop at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for me. That's for sure. You damn near had tears out of me talking about Jose Fernandez earlier in the year. Talking about Coop being traded might actually genuinely do it.
Oh, no.
I kind of resigned myself partway through the season or in the off season that this was Coop's last year. If the Marlins weren't going to be competitive, and at the early stages, we couldn't really trust that. This is let's not forget, a 90-loss team last year. And not much really changed in the spring as far as additions. Obviously, Arias came, but there were question marks about Pablo. So I kind of resigned myself on the idea that if by now, literally now, the Marlins weren't in it and Coop had a good year, then he could get traded to a competitor. I kind of like the idea of Coop going back to the Yankees and being in pinstripes again.
Yeah.
But as it is, the Marlins are where they are, and selling Coop for me would be a mistake. Yes, he is in his final year of his deal, and yes, getting something for him might be valuable. But I think sending one of your better hitters out there, as streaky and inconsistent and often hurt as he is, let's get that one out of the way before the comments get on me for that. He is still one of the better Marlins hitters. And if the Marlins are going to be competitive going into the playoffs, I think Coop's a valuable part of that.
Yeah, agreed. I do find it just the general puzzle happening here. You hear that the Marlins were actually in on Carlos Santana before he was moved. Straight up first baseman. No other versatility there. Sounds interesting. Feels like Yuli Gurriel has been a really big influence in the clubhouse this year too. So you'd be surprised if they were looking to make a move there. But it's the fact that it's the expiring deal. What we've seen and already seen is Dylan Floro, expiring deal, dependable dude, had a great career with the Marlins. They were happy to move him to go and get an extra year of control off the back of that. So I do think Coop is one to watch for that situation because Kim has kind of showed that's the Marlins profile. It's what they should be doing. They need to turn expiring assets into something that goes beyond. We know that. We don't really want them to trade for prospects, but if there's a major league for major league switch, Kim's already kind of tipped her hand to that. It wouldn't shock me if they went down that path. I don't actually know Santana's control situation without looking. I feel like he's on an expiring deal too. And another guy they're talking about, obviously, a lot of buzz around Candelario. He's not in the lineup today. You know, the Nats absolutely should and have to sell him. He's having a career year, Candelario. He's almost 3.5 WAR, 128 OPS plus, 16 home runs. You know, he was effectively cut by one of the worst teams in baseball and has just happened to kind of catch fire this year. So with that, I would tread with absolute caution with Candelario. But, you know, and there's no control beyond. Yes, if he may want to extend into Miami, but we know the Marlins aren't going to do that in all likelihood. So it'll be a pure rental. So I'm not convinced that Candelario kind of fits the profile here. I think other clubs may well, seek that type of player. But yeah, Coop, for me, it's just an interesting one. And maybe there's no smoke without fire, but I'm with you though, Sean. I'd loathe to trade Coop at this point because he's a dependable hitter. And he's in some ways having a career year. I know yet last year, in many ways, people saw that as his career year. And it was. His first half was amazing. But I think overall, like, he's having a productive year. He's the type of hitter that suits this lineup too, where you're looking for just a gap hitter. And that's kind of what you're looking for. With a bit of power in there too. He's a couple of home runs shy of his career high on home runs. So, yeah, wait to see. I think a name to watch. Just talk to me about Candelario, mate. What's your view on him? Because that's definitely a buzzy name right now, right here today. Like, this may age poorly in the next half an hour, an hour. But I'm not completely convinced on him. I know he's having a great year, but I wouldn't really want to give up any major assets to go and get Candelario, which for me feels like he's just got hot and he could tail off very, very quickly. And the Marlins could be left kind of holding the bag on that one.
I think it speaks to the fact that he is one of the bigger names in the deadline, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, you've got your Otanis and you've got this, that, and the other. But in general, Candelario's name's come up, not just for the Marlins, but for quite a few teams. And that level of interest is still there. And you're right with the Nationals. I mean, they really did do a good job. Like, they tried to do it last year with Nelson Cruz, and he just was so poor that it didn't work out. Like, they know they're not competing, so they're giving out these 1 year low dollar figures to these guys and hoping that they can get hot and then trade them at the deadline. And that's exactly what they're going to do with Candelario.
Yeah.
I think I do like him. I do think it would be good for the Marlins. And yes, Segura has heated up since his return, but I think just that we talked about it just now with Jazz coming back and Hampson going down. You can't have enough sticks. You need that depth. Especially when the rosters open up and as we get later into the season, there's still, injuries still are going to happen. Poor performance is still going to happen. Cold streaks is still going to happen. Having that extra stick that you can just trust in the lineup. And yeah, Candelario is that guy. And unfortunately, this at the moment, you've got so many teams in it. Yep. It's a seller's market. So the Marlins might have to overextend and spend more prospect-wise, that is. And for me, I can see Kim trying to do that. If it's not Candelario, it's somebody else. I can see Kim looking at this limited stock in the minor league system that she has and saying, if I don't spend it now, I might not ever get to spend it because this is her last year. This is a Brewster's Millions, which is a super old reference as far as the film, but anyone older than me or older than me will know that. Why would Kim not try and go out there and win, knowing that if the Marlins don't make the playoffs, they don't make some noise, then question marks will remain about her extension with the Marlins.
Yeah. Again, with Candelario, like the way things have been playing out, Jean Segura has been at third base most of the year. Slow start, home run yesterday. Again, timely bomb there from Mean Gene. He's definitely heating up. Like, that's the funny thing is the All-Star break's kind of like disrupted, or it does create this like milestone event in a year where the Marlins were scorching hot, All-Star break, ice cold. They're just about trying to work their way through that. Jorge Soler, scorching hot, now ice cold. Candelario, I feel like, same spot. Scorching hot, now kind of ice cold Candelario. Segura kind of going the other way. So the season ebbs and flows, and the Marlins are committed to Segura into next year. They do have a couple of free agents coming off, and Joey Wendell and Garrett Cooper that are getting, and Yuli Gurriel as well, of course. So there's a few guys that are expiring in the infield. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that Segura, they are committed to. He has started to turn it round. And so I do wonder if all of a sudden they're maybe reprioritizing where they're looking. I don't actually know what that means because they could go in a ton of directions. So I kind of think that they were in on Candelario earlier with a view of like, if Gene doesn't pan out, we're going to pull the trigger. And then I think Gene turned it, and then they went, hold a minute, let's just see what happens here with Jean Segura. And I think now Gene's emergence think has pumped the brakes here for the Fish. So I'd be surprised. I'm going to put it out there right now. I'd be surprised if they end up pulling the trigger on Candelario. I could absolutely see the rationale 1 month ago. A month on, the optics look different. Jean Segura's performance looks different. And maybe the Marlins' need is potentially different. Sean, more generally for you at this deadline, how are you feeling? Like, we haven't been in this spot. Well, 2020 we were in this spot, but in a 162, we haven't been in the spot for what? 20 years, really? It's more than that. I mean, they had one, what was the year? 16? Was that the year when they were up, like 9 games up in August, and then tailed away? So it's been a long period. How are you feeling generally just about the excitement levels of the deadline? How active are you seeing the Marlins going to be here?
This for me is a win as far as the season goes.
Yeah, we're not selling.
We spoke an awful lot during the off season because you were still going 5 days a week for most of the time. About our hopes and our expectations, and I kept saying, stick to 500, get to the deadline, buy, and I'll take it. And we're here, and I'm absolutely ecstatic, even though sometimes my face might not show it. But yeah, no, the Marlins being buyers at the deadline is just something that I'm not going to diminish. If they buy and it doesn't work out, then I'm not gonna sandbag on them and say Kim Ang needs to be fired or not extended. Like, this for me is they've done their job. They've got me to August and still very happy with the product that they're putting on the field, getting those wins. 90 lost seasons, 100 lost seasons, they suck. And right now, I'm super happy with the situation. They're buying. They seem to be, the Robertson deal for me was huge. Like, they went out there and got the best guy available. We've seen, admittedly, small sample size, 1 day of him, but delivered as promised, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that, mate, because that's the kind of next segue into the bullpen. We got our first view, I would say, of the leverage pen. Boy, oh boy, the Marlins, they found a way to, I mean, the pathway to that leverage pen was an interesting one in yesterday's game, on Sunday's game, because the Marlins down early, 4-0. They climbed back. It was a back and forth kind of game. They took the lead. They then blew the lead. Like, a lot was happening. But we got to see, it was very interesting that, the game was happening. Then all of a sudden it flashes the bullpen and AJ Puck's warming up. And it's like the 6th inning or whatever it might have been, and we're like, wow, okay. Like, we saw a real shift in the bullpen roles at that point. And Skip kind of came out before the game, I think it was, to say, listen, Robertson's effectively our closer. We've traded for a closer here. Puck's going to slide backwards. Robertson comes out. We've also had a couple of outings as well from Jorge Lopez in that series too. So let's kind of lean into those guys. Let's start with Robertson. You've kind of mentioned it. He's going to be the closer the rest of the year. How encouraged were you yesterday with that type of outing from him? His first appearance in a save situation, got the job done.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm broken record at sometimes talking about certain aspects, and this I'm going to do again. Like, the Marlins for years have had relievers in the closer role.
Yeah.
And you can scrape through and make it and just about get there. But for me, what I saw yesterday for Robertson was a closer closing the game.
Yeah.
Came in and, it was so smooth, effortless. Was just no pressure on him. You could see that he'd been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. And he had every reason to be extra stressed yesterday.
Yep.
The game had been to-ing and throwing, and he sat in the bullpen not knowing, how the game's going. All of a sudden, he's thrust into a save opportunity, and obviously with the way the game had sort of turned, it was a case of it would have been right. We're now leading. Right, I've now got to get ready. Travel to a new team, learning new people, faces, names. Like, that had all the pressure it could have on it, and it came in and just you wouldn't have known it to see it. You'd have thought he was just coming into a 5th inning in a blowout game where he's just getting some work in. It looked so effortless. And for me, again, small sample size, 1 day, but that to me is what a closer does. Comes in, does his job, and just walks in, does his job, walks out, no pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. It was effortless is how I describe it. It looked effortless, and it just, no pressure, no sweat, no nothing. Just came in and cruised it, which is great to see. Must say, so Robertson, filth. Absolute filth. Jorge Lopez, filth. Like, there is some nasty, nasty stuff there in Jorge Lopez. So again, the trade, Floro, dependable guy, been around for a while, not a strikeout guy, kind of relying on the defense. The Marlins, like, I can see what they saw in Lopez. So, like, that deal makes a ton of sense. And have to be honest, pretty impressed with Lopez's first couple of outings there. Let's not forget as well, Andrew Nardi, I think likely to be activated tomorrow. I know he pitched back-to-back games in a rehab assignment over the weekend. So they wouldn't have activated today because he would have been down anyway. So I think Andrew Nardi activated tomorrow ahead of the deadline as well. So there you go. The Marlins, all of a sudden, the righty relief options just look completely different. We've been crying out for it felt like weeks, maybe months, speaking about this righty reliever situation. All of a sudden, Nardi back, Lopez doing his thing. He won't be as high leverage, and then Robertson just effortless in the ninth. So, this bullpen, it's been addressed. It was addressed in the offseason. It's been added to. So, I mean, the transformation's wild. I look back at the bullpen last year, at a good chunk of that bullpen, and this bullpen is just completely, it's mind-blowing how different it is, to be honest with you. Kim's done a fantastic job piecing this together. And, and let's not forget, Anthony Bender, I don't think is a million miles away either, to be honest with you. It feels like he's been throwing 20, 25 pitch innings, for feels like a couple of weeks. So wouldn't shock me if Bender could contribute at the back end here of this season. So wait to see on that one. It would be wrong of us not to talk about another return from yesterday. It wasn't emergency podcast territory, but after the game, it almost was. Avisail Garcia, what a return to this Marlins lineup. We spoke about Jazz Chisholm earlier, Sean, how big of an impact this could be from an offensive standpoint. All of a sudden, like, Avisail Garcia has played even less games than Jazz Chisholm Jr. His career thus far in Miami has been putrid. There's no other way of getting around it. However, he came back and for me looked a completely different guy. Wide stance, skinny Avi. But here's the other thing too that I've been thinking about since. I do wonder if that 3-month break from baseball in general, mentally, just has helped him. It's been maybe what he needed, as it was a terrible year rolling into the start of the year, started badly. I do wonder if maybe this little mental break from the game, just generally, no pressure, has just helped him to reset. He's come in, he looks motivated. The clubhouse is speaking positively of Avi Garcia. Skip Schumacher's speaking positively. Listen, if Avi can return to anything like what he was supposed to be, this is another huge dub here for this Marlins offense.
Yeah, I mean,
I've almost told that, haven't I?
Yeah, God help you, Pete. Look, I'm going to try and remain positive because I am happy at the moment with the Marlins, and I can see a scenario where, obviously, last year was terrible. We know that from Avi, and then he presumably spent all the off season working very hard, like losing that weight, getting in shape. Yep. Coming into spring, super infused. I've done the work. I've got myself in shape. I'm going to be back to what I used to do. And then he sucked again. And I can imagine that's a real, for him as a human being, that must be really tough. I did what I thought I needed to do to fix this, and it didn't work.
Yep. Yeah.
So, maybe the time off, maybe the time away, work on a few things, get your head right, get your confidence back. And now you've got this short run. You've got this 2 months of the rest of the season where any performance from Avi is going to be huge for the Marlins. And he's chasing playoffs. Like, let's not forget, that's what he plays for.
Yeah. Came here to win a ring, he said.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, no, let's hope. But my actual realistic expectations are low. He has a low barrier to exceed.
Yeah.
And if you can manage that, then great. But fool me once, twice. So I'm not going to let him do it a third time.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it's wishful thinking. We'll wait to see. Just who knows? But, it would be a stunning turnaround if somehow Avisail Garcia manages to come back and contribute in a postseason run for the Marlins in 2023. It would be a stunning turnaround. And, you add him, you add Jazz, they're back in the lineup. There'll be other nicks and bruises and people will get hurt along the way. I think Jesus Sanchez has been dealing with stuff last few days. Obviously, he exited the game in a weird situation where it was like kind of linked to his neck or something, but looked like he was dizzy. Something weird going on with Jesus Sanchez. He's at lineup again today. A lefty going tomorrow, so won't see Jesus Sanchez tomorrow. Like, it's going to be almost probably like a week off, I guess, for Jesus. But, again, now Avi's back. It's going to be interesting to see the way they mix this outfield. De La Cruz has pretty much been a staple every day in left field. Not that his fielding's up to that much, to be honest with you, but Jazz is going to be out there in center field every day. De La Cruz, then you got Avi, then you got Jesus Sanchez. Like, it's going to be interesting to see the way they mix this outfield again, kind of back to where we started with the year. Soler DHing, maybe that helps him, but I do feel like when Soler was in right field, he seemed to hit better, actually. So either way, impressive return from Avi Garcia. Although it did start with a double play, grounded to double play his first at bat, which was unlucky. He hit it hard opposite field. And then the rest of the game, there was a triple in there too. And I think if he'd legged it out, the funny thing is he didn't leg it out because I think he thought it was getting out. But if he had set off Rapido, the way it kicked away from the wall, I think there was a chance there could have been an inside the park home run there for Avisail Garcia. And that would have been a wild situation. That would have been the second one on the year for the Fish. The first one was Yuli Gurriel. Just imagine that. 2 inside the park home runs, Avisail Garcia, Yuli Gurriel. That would just show how much magic and how much voodoo there is happening with this Marlins team in 2023. We shouldn't forget here, Sean, as well. I know the deadline is like front and center of our minds. The Marlins are getting healthier, so they're getting better generally. Just briefly, let's talk about the starting pitching situation, because we haven't spoken about the starters at all in this episode. So much is going on. Johnny Cueto, though, another what I would describe as okay outing. His last one was better than okay. But like for Cueto, this was fine. And actually, we're seeing from Cueto what we need to see. And Braxton Garrett had another good start in the week. Eddie Cabrera, this is a really intriguing situation here. Eddie Cabrera going this evening, he's been the liability. I wonder what they can get out of Eddie and what the chain reaction is. If Eddie Cabrera goes 6 scoreless, how does that impact the deadline, if anything? If Eddie Cabrera goes 2 innings, exits with a blister or walks everyone, how does that impact it for the Marlins? Like, could it actually come down to Eddie Cabrera's performance this evening against the Phils, and their offense is dangerous, and what they do from a starting pitcher perspective? Like, it really, to me, it feels like this could be a sliding doors moment.
Yeah, it could have been. If you look at the last 3 games as an example, they've used 4 relievers on average each night.
Yeah,
like that's telling. And I think you're right in the sense of like Cueto was okay, 6 innings, 4 runs, 1 walk. Like, it's Cueto. That's a barrier that you will take for him.
Yeah,
as far as being your 4th, 5th starter, however you want to define it.
Yeah,
like, that's fine. If Cueto gives me 6 innings, 4 less runs, like 90% of the time, done.
Move on.
Yeah. But I think it is a case of there are moves to be made. I think I said a couple of weeks ago, Kim can't do enough. Kim can't add so many players that I go, it's a bit OTT. Like, this is all in. This is genuinely all in. The Marlins are entering August in a playoff spot, hunting for that spot. Like, let's just go and do it. Let's go and get those people. Let's get those additions. And if it doesn't work out and they don't make the playoffs, or they get bumped in the wild card series, I don't care.
No,
genuinely don't care. Give me competitive baseball in October, any day of the week.
Absolutely. Do wonder, the name that was buzzing around on the pitching perspective, Jack Flaherty was the name buzzing around. The Cardinals already started to sell some pitching. I think Jordan Montgomery went. Like, the pitching price tags again are high. And this is why it's a really, it's so tricky, this spot for the Fish, because organizationally there is enough pitching, but right now, the here and now, there isn't quite enough because of this Yuri Perez situation. Obviously, some injuries. Trevor Rogers, again, still no throw from Trevor. I'm not sure if Trevor's done for the year, to be honest with you, at this point. It doesn't look to be trending in the best way. And then it just means that, what's the safety net behind Eddie Cabrera or one of the other guys going down? Really, the safety net is George Soriano. And I have to call out that George Soriano has been absolutely stunning out of the pen as a long man. He's been so effective. Who knows if he ends up having to start some games, but the starting pitching market is one that the Marlins, I think, are playing in, but I've always felt they'd be a tier below. I always felt they wouldn't go all in on a super high quality, an SP1, 2 rental that would cost too much. From their perspective, would you really want to give, Khalil Watson for Jack Flaherty at this point? For me, I would say no, but that's only because I'm super high on Khalil Watson, to be honest with you. But anyway, wait to see. It's going to be an amazing period. The Marlins are buyers. This is what Sean has said. The Marlins are buyers. They're 8 games over 500 as we record this. There hasn't been a deal done in the last 35 minutes, by the way. I have been checking. No deal's done. Cooper is still with us, Sean. You'd be glad to know. So no deal's done. But the Marlins, they've put themselves in the position to buy. They've already made some really nice moves. They've got healthy all of a sudden too. But I think there's going to be more to come in the next 24 hours plus as they maybe look to augment this. And I think as well, they're taking a stud available approach. If there's a good guy around, I think they'll just go and get him and work out roster construction after. I think that's the beauty of the Marlins roster, to be honest with you, Sean. Just one final point here is the way that they've got so many versatile guys, position eligibility, kind of doesn't really matter. If there's a stud, they'll be interested. If you're selling a stud, Kim's picking the phone up and, seeing what they can do. That's kind of the point. It's Santana was available. They were going, okay, we like Santana. We think he can contribute. First base, don't worry, we'll find a way to make it work. I don't think they see kind of the position being a hindrance. If there's a stud, go get him. What about you?
Yeah, it is that case of let's take Carlos Santana as an example. Then you're moving Coop into the DH role. You're putting, you can move players around, and it is a case of Soler could go into the outfield. We've seen him play there and play okay. Obviously, guys want days off, and I think you have to point out that Kim, and again, this is why I want Kim extended. Kim's done such a great job of bringing in people, not just the older guys that put in, the eligibility, as you said, it defensively. They've built a Major League Baseball team. They haven't just put 9 guys in a lineup and said we need all those 9 guys to be healthy and they can only play their one spot. So I've seen teams like that, believe me, especially for the Marlins. Yeah. But Kim has built a successful Major League Baseball team, and with Skip running it again. This has been such a good, positive season for the Marlins. There's been no negativity. There's not really been. The only bad thing you've really had is Sandy's first half a little bit and Jazz's health. But on the whole, everything's just seemed to go well. That voodoo situation that you talked about earlier, I think we're calling it voodoo because we've just never seen it before. But maybe this is what a well-run baseball team looks like. And we certainly haven't seen that very often before either.
Sean Barrett we've been going 43 minutes and he's hit the nail on the head there. That's why we think it is voodoo. It isn't. What the Marlins are doing is what good teams and well-run teams do. They find ways to win. We just haven't seen that for so long. We forgot what it looked like. I've never seen it before. This is the point. We all think it's luck. We think it's magic. We think someone's going on. It isn't. It's just good teams playing well, finding ways to get it done. Great point, Sean. Great way to finish it. Guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It was long, but it was on purpose. We wanted to go long. So much to get into. There's so much buzz happening with this Marlins team right now, and there's going to be so much happening in the next 24 hours. As you know, guys, if there's a move, there will be an emergency pod. Equally, we will be recapping the deadline in general as well over the next, into Wednesday's episode, probably on that front. But keep your eyes peeled, notifications on for episodes because they could drop at any moment once the Marlins drop a trade. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And thanks to the UK GOAT, Sean Barrett, for joining me on today's episode And, well, let's hope they smash up the Phillies as well in this series. We didn't have time to talk about the Phillies series, but we're out of here. We'll see you tomorrow.